day. My name is Juanita Steenekamp and I'm a project director here at SAICA. I would like to welcome Advocate Neville Melville from the Consumer Goods and Services Ombud for our discussion here today on the work of the Ombud and what else they are doing. Good morning, Advocate.
Hello.
Neville, if we start at the beginning, perhaps you can just tell us what is the Office of the Ombud and what do they do?
Sure. Well, what we are is the official body that deals with complaints and any disputes that arise within the consumer goods and services industry. And we operate in terms of a code which was approved at about March or April last year. And since then it's been obligatory for all members of the consumer goods industry that form part of the supply chain, that produce goods and services that ultimately reach the customer, for them to register with us and then to them also to contribute towards the cost of running the office.
Okay. Which consumers do the Ombud actually assist? If I remember, the Act says that the Act applies to consumers, individual persons, and then juristic persons with a turnover below 2 million rand.
Yes, that's right. So those would be the people that would actually come directly to our office.
So any of those people can go to you for assistance.
Yes.
So if I'm a large company, then I wouldn't be able to
no,
get
but
your
even
assistance.
in respect of the smaller entities and individuals, it would only be in respect of people who'd had dealings in that particular subsector of the industry.
Maybe can you explain more?
Yeah, so obviously if it's a complaint against a motor vehicle manufacturer, that wouldn't fall within our jurisdiction. And also if it had something to do with the financial industry, a bank or an insurance company or something like that, again, we wouldn't have jurisdiction in respect of those complaints and those consumers.
Okay. Neville, so how does somebody complain? You buy something, you're not happy with the service you get or the product, what's the next steps?
Right, the first thing is to actually approach whoever it is that's appointed to deal with complaints within the organisation, because the code requires that every business, irrespective of its size, has a complaint process in place, as well as a person who's designated to deal with those complaints. It's only if the person doesn't receive satisfaction at that point that they can escalate the complaint through to us by calling us at our call centre if they need assistance, or they can actually fill in the complaint form online at our website and then it goes directly into the system.
Okay, and then?
And then what would happen is, first of all, we decide if it's something we can deal with. In other words, is it within our jurisdiction? If it is, then we would send it through to the supplier at the appropriate place. So there'd be a designated official that we deal with on an ongoing basis. And we would then give them the opportunity or one last chance to resolve the complaint, failing which they would actually have to submit a report to us stating why they didn't resolve it and what their reasons for not resolving it were. And then it'd be a question of, depending on the facts of the case, we could either try and facilitate a settlement of some description, maybe with a whole lot of telephone calls, if the parties seem to be getting closer together on the point, or we could call them in for a formal mediation, sit them around a table. It's not always possible because of the distances involved and so forth. Or if ultimately there's no settlement, what we can do is write a determination at the end of the day.
So, so we've dealt with the process. Complaints that you've had currently, has there been a lot? I've read in your annual report that you are facilitating them quite quickly, got a good turnaround time?
Yeah, well, I must say it's not as good as we'd like it to be. Certainly nothing comparable to going onto the internet and complaining through one of those portals. And I think that's something the suppliers need to realise, that they can't say, oh, well, because it's through the Ombudsman we can take our time. But if it's on the internet, then we can have it resolved by the next day. But certainly we do have a number of complaints coming through to us, and we estimate we'll probably deal with about 5,000 this year by the close of the business year.
Okay. And the future for the Ombuds office, how do you foresee going in the next year, communicating your successes and
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge at this stage is because we're still fairly new from the point of view of having been an approved Ombudsman. So we still have to sign up a lot of businesses. At present, we've got about 240 businesses, which are mainly the bigger businesses and the groups and so forth, the people whose names you'd be familiar with by and large. But even some of them haven't as yet signed up and as such are contravening the law. But in addition to that, it's actually quite an unknown quantity of businesses out there that are operating, and it's actually quite interesting to try and discover that number even from government agencies is a very difficult thing to do. And I think there's a lot of people who probably operate without having any sort of corporate identity, so there's really no track of them. They may not even pay tax. So, whether we would ever be able to track all of them down is another question altogether.
Okay. Neville, I'm also aware, and I saw recently that there were a few other codes, draft codes. The Draft Advertising and Marketing Industry Code and the Funeral Industry released a code recently. Yes. Are they in communication with you? Are they setting up a similar office that what you're doing?
Yes, very much so. We talk with all the existing ombudsmen, and we, I think, swap notes and try and learn from each other's experience. And also we try and have a single port of call, so if someone comes to us with a complaint relating to advertising, or once the funeral code is passed, then we would receive it and pass it on to them. So it would be a seamless sort of service as far as the consumer is concerned. So that's the idea, not to create any sort of confusion and difficulty, but rather to make it an easier process. I think ultimately what might happen is there may be some pressure from the powers that be for all the ombudsmen to have a single point of entry and perhaps a single form, which would make it a lot easier. But I think that's quite some way down the line. And my only concern is with all these new ombudsmen is it may create a little bit of confusion, although I can assure you we're quite happy to offload the funeral related matters and tombstones and this sort of thing that we do get at present, because those are quite difficult cases to deal with.
Okay. Neville, thank you for your willingness to participate in our discussion. Certainly. We will be having a second discussion where we're going to talk about the registration requirements. Thank you.